The morning didn't start with sirens or gunfire. It started with a silence so heavy it felt wrong, the kind of quiet that makes you wonder what's waiting around the corner. In a sleepy little town outside Richmond, Virginia, a black SUV rolled down Maplewood Drive. The paint was flawless, the rims simple but expensive, and the windows were tinted darker than what the local cops usually saw in that neighborhood. It wasn't speeding, it wasn't swerving, it was just out of place, at least to one man watching. Officer Dale Mercer sat in his cruiser nursing his third cup of coffee, eyes heavy but alert, scrolling through license plates on his department-issued tablet. He liked quiet shifts. They gave him control, made him feel like he had the streets in the palm of his hand. When dispatch pinged about a possible suspect vehicle from a break-in earlier that morning, a late-model black SUV, he didn't wait for confirmation. He locked in, eyes narrowing as if the story had already written itself, a black man behind the wheel of a government-grade SUV driving through a white suburb, no bumper stickers, no car seats, nothing familiar to soften the picture. Suspicion didn't creep into Mercer's mind. It roared. Inside that SUV sat Samuel Brooks. To the world, he was the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But that morning, he was just a man who wanted to drive alone, no escort, no motorcade, just him and the road before a quiet meeting with the governor. He had grown up in Baltimore, where walking home in the wrong zip code could mean a stop, a shove, or worse. Those lessons never left him. Even at the very top of federal law enforcement, he carried that awareness like armor. He felt the tail before he saw it, the shadow of a cruiser in his rearview mirror. He kept his hands steady on the wheel, his breathing even. He'd been followed before. You'd never really unlearn that feeling. And sure enough, the cruiser flicked on its lights. No siren, just the quiet strobe meant to unsettle. Brooks pulled over under a row of oak trees near a closed-down car wash. The street was empty except for a food truck across the way, where a teenage girl, phone in hand, paused mid-bite of a sandwich. She lifted her camera. Something about the scene felt off, worth recording. Mercer approached slowly, one hand hovering near his holster, eyes sharp and suspicious. He hadn't called for backup. He preferred doing things alone. That way, the moment belonged to him. License and registration, he barked no greeting. Brooks nodded, calm as stone. Officer, I'll comply, but you should know this is a government vehicle. The plates won't pull up in your system. License and registration. Mercer repeated sharper, tapping the edge of his holster. Brooks lifted his hand slowly, deliberately. I'm reaching for my ID wallet inside my jacket, nothing else. But Mercer had already stepped back, unlatched the snap on his holster. Brooks froze, hand hovering above his blazer. He kept his voice low measured. My name is Samuel Brooks. I'm the director of the FBI. Mercer smirked, lips curling. Nice try. Then he drew his gun. The teenager across the street gasped on her live stream. He's pointing a gun at a man in a suit. He just said he's FBI. Brooks didn't flinch. His voice was calm, almost steady enough to shame the trembling hands gripping that Glock. You're making a mistake. You won't be able to walk back. Step out of the vehicle, Mercer ordered, his voice cracking just slightly under the weight of the moment. From across the street, the girl whispered into her phone. The officer looks scared, but the man in the car doesn't. Brooks kept his gaze steady. You're being recorded from at least 2 angles I can see, and my team will be watching this in seconds. Whatever you do, make sure you can justify it. Before Mercer could react, another black Suburban slid silently into the scene. No sirens, no screeching tires, just presence. A man in plain clothes, tall, with close-cropped hair, stepped out. His voice was loud, commanding. Officer, lower your weapon. Step away from the vehicle. Mercer spun, gun twitching. Who the hell are you? The man didn't blink. The one you'll answer to if you do not put that firearm down. Now, Brooks finally pushed open his door and stood 6'3" in a black suit with his FBI badge glinting in the sun. The teenager's phone zoomed in, catching the reveal live. In that moment, the illusion shattered. Mercer wasn't staring at just another black man behind the wheel of an SUV. He was staring at the director of the FBI, and the whole world was watching. The federal agent stepped forward, plucked Mercer's gun clean from his grip. "You're done," he said flatly. Mercer's mouth opened, but nothing came out. That clip raced through the internet like fire on dry grass. By nightfall, it had millions of views, headlines screaming, "Cop points gun at black man, turns out he's FBI director." In Maplewood, people like to say nothing ever happens here. But the truth was, things happened all the time. They just never got recorded. Until now. Within hours, the president himself was briefed. And when he saw the footage, he asked one question: was the gun loaded? The answer was yes. His response was simple: then make it official. The next morning, the president stood in the Rose Garden. Cameras flashed. The press leaned forward. He spoke plainly. "I have directed the Department of Justice to permanently disqualify Officer Dale Mercer from serving in any law enforcement capacity in this country. Effective immediately." Gasps rippled through the reporters. No president had ever done that before. But this wasn't just about one officer. It was about a system that let men like him believe their instincts mattered more than evidence, that authority was entitlement, that skin color was suspicion. But Brooks didn't stop there. He flew to Atlanta to meet with people Mercer had quietly targeted over the years: a teacher and Army veteran, a mother pulled over with her child in the back seat. He didn't go as director, he went as a man who understood. He listened to their stories, their anger, their exhaustion. Then he said, "I'm here because your voices were buried. Mine wasn't. That's not justice, that's imbalance. So I'll use mine to lift yours." When he testified before Congress, his words weren't polished, they were lived. "Power isn't a badge or a gun," he said. "It's accountability. Without it, the badge is just a threat." The chamber was silent, then applause rose not from senators but from citizens sitting in the gallery. The clip went viral all over again. This time not because of Mercer's failure, but because of Brooks's truth. Soon, Congress drafted the Tate Act named for him, tying federal police funding to transparency and de-escalation standards. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Meanwhile, Mercer sat in a holding room back in his own precinct, stripped of his badge gun locked away. He stared at his reflection in the one-way mirror, sweating hollow. He had always told himself he wasn't racist, that he was just following instinct. But even he couldn't escape the question. Now, why did his hand reach for the gun before he even read the ID? The answer sat in silence. And yet there was one moment no one saw on camera. Weeks later, the teenager, her name was Kyra, showed up at Mercer's door with her mom. He froze, expecting anger. Instead, Kyra said quietly, "I didn't film you because I hate cops. I filmed because I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I didn't know he was FBI. I just knew it felt wrong." For the first time, Mercer looked down, not out of shame, but out of something heavier: understanding. That moment never trended, never made the news, but it mattered. Because even as his career ended, as federal charges loomed, the truth finally sank in. He hadn't seen a threat. He'd seen a black man, and he filled in the rest. And Brooks. He went back to Baltimore, stood on the steps of the row house where he grew up. A boy on a bike stopped wide-eyed. "You that guy from TV, my grandma said you made cops listen." Brooks smiled faintly. "I didn't make them listen. I just made it impossible for them to ignore." The boy grinned, pedaled off. And for the first time since that morning on Maplewood Drive, Brooks let himself breathe not relief, but resolve. Because this story wasn't about one officer, one stop, one gun drawn. It was about every quiet moment where fear got mistaken for law, where instinct was weaponized against the wrong skin. And it left one question hanging in the air for anyone watching, anyone who ever said, "just comply." If it can happen to the director of the FBI, what does that mean for everyone else who doesn't carry a title or a badge or a camera streaming to the world? That's where I'll leave you, because this isn't just my story or his story, it's ours. And I want to hear from you. Was this justice? Was it enough? Have you ever seen something like this happen in your town? Drop your thoughts below because silence is complicity, and maybe your comment is the next voice that makes it impossible to ignore.